Being the resurrection, Victoria Weinstein. The stone has got to be rolled back from the tomb again and again every year. Roll up your sleeves. He is not coming back, you know. He is not coming back unless it is we who rise for him. We who lay healing hands on the reviled and rejected like he did on his behalf. We who rage for righteousness in his insistent voice. We who love the sinner, even knowing that the sinner is no farther off than our own heartbeat. He will not be back to join us at the table, to share God's extravagant banquet, God's love feast. All are invited, come as you are. And so it is you and I who must feast for him, must say the grace and break the bread and pass it to the left, and dish up the broiled fish or pour the wine and pass it to the right, and treat each one so tenderly, as though just this morning he or she made the personal effort to make it back from heaven or from hell, but certainly from death, to be by our side. Because if by some miracle, and why not a miracle, he did come back, wouldn't he want to see us like this? Wouldn't it be a miracle to live for just one day, so that if he did, by some amazing feat, come riding into town, he could take a look around and say, "This is what I meant." And we could say, "It took us a long time, but we finally figured it out." Oh, let us live to make it so. You are the resurrection and the life.
What a powerful message of hope, joy, and affirmation that has gotten lost in the vying about whose doctrines and dogmas created over the centuries are right about who Jesus was. What if we finally and truly figured out what Jesus was teaching and understanding his message of love? What if we lived as if we are wondrous and beautiful as these flowers and these children? What if we lived as if each person we see is a wondrous creation? This is our promise and our possibility. Jesus' life and message were about a new way of living and relating. It was not about a message of judgment of who is saved and who isn't. Jesus didn't reject those who were searching or who wanted to learn how to live more fully. He welcomed them into his circle or onto a hillside or shared a meal of fish and loaves. If we look at what Jesus meant in his native language, Jesus wasn't saying that he was the only way, but that he was the clearest reflection of the sacred, of God, if you use that word. He was a manifestation of love. And he told those who understood his teachings that they would do even greater things than he did. The earliest believers in Jesus held in their minds and hearts that he wanted them to live his teachings every day. They understood the teachings of the Hebrew scriptures and knew that every one of us is called to walk humbly, to offer mercy to one another. Jesus taught that love is always with us, and therefore we can be love to one another because each one of us is a child of God. Each of us is a beloved daughter or son living in the sacred creation. That seems like such a simple message. Perhaps that's why it's so complex to understand and follow. Jesus' teachings didn't end when he left this world. He had a message that speaks to people today. So what did he do that was so radical? Well, he modeled the worth and dignity of all people. He went against the rules of the day and welcomed women as his disciples. Jesus befriended and helped those who were unacceptable by society's standards. He healed people in body and soul. He taught the lessons about how to live life. Jesus saw people with eyes of love. He helped people see the world in a different way. His message wasn't about dogma, it was about compassion and unity. When we celebrate the flower communion, we are participating in a ritual that embodies what Jesus was teaching, that each person is unique and special, just as every flower is beautiful and a precious part of creation. That message was radical in Jesus' day, and it was radical for Norbert Čapek, a Unitarian minister in Prague who began the flower communion as a message of affirmation and love. And he died in Dachau for that message of this ritual and for his beliefs. This message of love, mercy, and hope is radical today. What will we do with it? Even when it seems that I have to go against the fear-mongering and rigidity of this day. Jesus said to his disciples that they would do greater things than he did. So, what does that mean for Unitarian Universalists today as we think about the life and teaching of Jesus? After wading through the dogma and creeds about Jesus, many Unitarian Universalists find profound meaning in Jesus' ethical teachings. That message has become, for many UUs, the foundation for how we wish to live our lives. We, like Jesus, seek to affirm the worth and dignity of all people. Jesus' friends and disciples weren't the rich and famous. They didn't have contracts with marketing companies. They didn't have to sign contracts for how many millions they would get. They were the most ordinary people, maybe even people like you and me. And they felt that he truly saw them and loved them for who they were. Jesus was so radical that women were his followers, which was against the rules of the day. They understood that he saw them as people of worth. And I might remind you that the women were the ones who stayed at the foot of the cross and didn't run away with fear like the men did. Jesus gave each person insights about how to live up to their potential in heart, soul, and spirit. His message was that we should keep renewing our lives, keep growing in how we love in the world, keep unfolding our lives like a flower that's ready to bloom, like a fruit that is becoming ripe. His message has the power to transform our lives, to transform how we see ourselves and how we see one another. Jesus' teaching push us to live in new ways. If we too are sons and daughters of sacred unity, that sacred unity that we call God, if we are part of the original blessing of creation, then how shall we live? How shall we become a people who live knowing that renewal is possible? That even when we feel our world is falling apart, is coming to an end, that resurrection is possible. This is a radical and amazing message. It's a message of joy and possibility. How we live is a radical act of embodying the teachings of Jesus, of embodying love. And if indeed Jesus returned today, what would he wish for us to be doing with our lives? So I return to Victoria Weinstein's words. Because if by some miracle, and why not a miracle, he did come back, wouldn't he want to see us like this? Wouldn't it be a miracle to live for just one day so that if he did, by some amazing feat, come riding into town, he could take a look around and say, this is what I meant. And we could say, it took us a long time, but we finally figured it out. So let us live to make it so. You are the resurrection and the life. On this day when Earth Day is so close to Easter, we can see all around us evidence of life, renewal, resurrection. Unlike the flowers and the trees that seem to effortlessly burst into bloom, we have to be intentional about how we will be renewed. Our thoughts and actions either bring new life or death. We're going to have to figure it out day by day, thought by thought, action by action. Slowly, we learn to live with compassion. We learn to act with mercy, and we learn to manifest love and peace. Let us be flowers that bloom with wild abundance. Let us live joyfully in every season of our lives.